ordinary citizen could, while seeing that or hearing it, become aware of this subterranean part of their history and their life um, privileges. They just to be alive. I mean, for all of us being alive now, we're beneficiaries of genocide.
Yeah. Hmm. Uh, I want to bring up something related to what we were talking about earlier, the theme of grief. And I was kind of feeling into that and thinking about it during the break. And I think one of the biggest griefs for me, and it's really continuing, it's like it's ongoing deep grief, is that, in the 60s and 70s and, into the 80s, I mean, I lived through that period. I mean, we were actually making some progress. I mean, we were starting to turn things around a little bit. We were starting to make some progress. There were some little incremental changes. We created the environmental movement. I mean, we actually created that. The United States did. And it's amazing. And look where we are now. It's like everything has been rejected, all that progress, or not all that, there wasn't that much, but the little bit of progress we were making has been undone and it's being rejected and it's falling apart and it's all going to shit but now. And I mean, for me, that's an intense source of grief. Because, we were actually starting along a better path. I mean, we were actually starting to do it. And even, all over the world, we were starting to do it. And then all these forces came in and opposed it and undid it and basically sabotaged it, So now all that was sabotaged and destroyed. And I mean, that's, that is just so sad to me. It's just horribly, horribly sad.
Mm.
And that's what I wanted to add about what we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really hard.
Thank you for that, Richard. I just want to, for the sake of the folks who will be watching this recording, this is the second session of two here on the first Saturday in September 2025. This is the last month of the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World year-long course that we've been doing here in Living Resilience. And Living Resilience is mostly a Mighty Networks platform for those who are familiar with that particular platform where people can come together and do, support groups and different kinds of groups involve themselves using the Mighty Networks environment. And this is one of two Saturdays that we've been doing for these now 13 months. And it's the first and third Saturday of every month that we've been doing. And a brief note to connect with all the logistics that I did in the first hour. I won't belabor that again this time. But we are transitioning to a smaller, more light on its feet, a little bit more streamlined course environment, amongst others. There are going to be there's been one introductory course that is all self-paced. It's all recordings of a remarkable, sweet book by a deep adaptation facilitator named Terry LePage, and it's called The Eye of the Storm. And it's one of the most gentle introductions to the whole notion of becoming collapse aware. And then possibly toward the end of the last chapter, collapse acceptant. That's quite it's really its own threshold. Collapse aware is tough enough for many people. Collapse acceptance can be a whole different challenge, which we'll talk a little bit more about now in this session. And we started out just kind of straight out of the gate. I didn't hit the record button quite as early as I should have. I didn't know we'd have so much spontaneous sharing. So my apologies to those who are watching the recording and wondering, wow, they came in the middle of a sentence. What's going on with that? We've had a just a very moving and connecting and beautiful first hour together in session one. And we've got some new faces here. And I'm going to ask if new face people, if you would, and some are quite familiar new face people, um, if you would check in very briefly. We had some luxuriously long and quite extraordinary check-ins in the first hour, and we will really need to move on to other neighborhoods of the conversation. But I would like to include you, and so just a brief version of the prompt we all responded to in the first hour is, how are you doing in this world as it is right now? How is your sense of connectedness with the things that we might call central in a human life, if we're lucky, to be connected with our own sense of deeper self, or possibly soul, or your sense of center that you can return to on a good day, when things are going well. How are you doing with the sense of connectedness with other people? Do you have precious people that you can connect with, that with whom you can co-regulate, that you can bring yourselves back to center when life is knocking you off center? How are you doing with your connection with Earth? Are you aware of that, or is it rich and full and good? Is it not as much as you'd like? Connection with Earth. And the one that I threw in at the end, just because it's something that's very big in my world, is a connection with soul. And for lack of a few hours over a cup of tea with y'all, that, where we could really define soul and find it and explore it and mush around in it together. I just like to say at this point, it's on the exact opposite end of the spectrum than where our culture is going, with especially the acceleration and intensification of AI and politics as they currently exist. Um, that's, I would say, as close to soulless as I ever want to get. The other end of the spectrum is waiting for your definition and how you realize soul in your life. But that's where we'll meet, where our inner neighborhoods overlap in that direction. So I think that's enough recap. We're going to be going until 10 o'clock exactly. I won't be going late on this next one because I actually have a hard stop. And so we will be managing the time that way. And I would like to have just a brief couple of moments for the new people, including Dwayne Light, who has just arrived, for y'all to just let us know a little bit about who you are, your name and where you're calling in from, and perhaps most importantly, what has you be on a call like this, in a space like this, with people like this. So if you could just share a minute or two about those things, that would be great. Is there any of the new folks, perhaps Ruth or Dr. Cindy Scholes or Dwayne Light? Would one of you like to step up and check in briefly with us?
I can share. I'll try to keep it really brief. That was a really interesting prompt. I think I could speak on some of the answers for a long time.
Yeah.
The soulful piece that I'm going to speak to very briefly has been really important to me this whole year as a deep exploration of what does that mean and how can I be more soulful. Um, but what I've been really present to in the last couple of weeks has been my connection with community. And my family and I attended one of the protests on Labor Day. There was a protest here in California, 17 miles along the El Camino. They were intending 17,000 people. I don't know if we had the human wall that they were looking for, but we found a group called the Raging Grannies. I have a friend who writes lyrics for protest songs. I took my mother, my kid, my niece, and her boyfriend, and it was such a wonderful experience of connecting with people around a cause we all believed in and that we all felt really passionate about, but connecting from a place of love and caring. And the young people were like eager to be engaged. And it was very much felt like a passing of the torch from the the women of the Raging Grannies are older than
Mm.
I am, and so they're passing the torch to the younger people who are in their 20s, and it just felt really comforting. And I have been through this whole year looking for moments of delight, blessings, hope, connection, love. And I felt like I was finding it this last Labor Day with that just engagement that I saw around me with people who were really wanting to have a better future. And there's a lot more I could share, but I'm going to stop there for interest of time. Thank you, Dean.
All right. Cindy, thank you. Good to see you.
You too.
I guess I'll go ahead. My name is Ruth Smith, and I've been getting somehow I signed up to this email that I've been getting, and anyway, yeah, I have community. Yeah, I have a pretty good community here. I am originally from Venezuela, and I've lived in a lot of different places, so I feel like that what's happening is a lot like I don't just focus on the States, and I have recently joined a group which is called the White Path, and it's really working on focusing on the spirit, and it's a huge community. It's based in Chile, and it feels really good to just go worldwide in the connections of the shifts that are going on, and possibly these are meant to be, is how it's being expressed. So yeah, just really focusing on the spirit over. And I do, like, I am in nature a lot. I walk barefoot. If you will see me in Ashland, I'm one of the people that is always barefoot, so connected to the earth, and to all the shifts that are happening, and yeah, grateful to expand my community through you guys too. That's
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And I believe that Dwayne exited, so we will move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And one piece that I know that I mentioned it in the last hour. One of the cornerstones, certainly in my experience and my own practices and so on, for much of my life, has been a familiarity with grief. And for most of that time, the world around me just didn't really get it. There was just not any reason to be talking about that sad stuff. And here we are in a culture in the USA of really grief averse people. And there's a fear, there's a revulsion oftentimes of the idea of why would you dwell on grief? Why would you spend even a moment longer than you'd had to there? And the lineage that I've connected with, a couple of lineages actually, um, their assertion is that grief is an essential other side of the coin, if you will, of love. That there is a dynamic, almost a universal principle, and I don't know what that universal principle is, but they are so interwoven, love and grief tend to grieve something or someone we love. There's some sort of proportionality there. There's some sort of interweaving there. And what I've seen in the 10 years of evolving this work and trying to figure out what would be most useful for people, what would be the form that would be most accessible and engaging for people. Grief is still, it's not popular. It's I don't know if it's ever going to be on the top 10 list of American topics to engage with.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. But I'm finding it to be an extraordinarily important uh, portal in so many of the conversations that I have with folks like yourselves involved in one way or another with this conversation of what is it to be collapse aware, aware of human caused collapse of both Earth and human systems. And is there some way to integrate that, not just as something that we can endure or put up with, but actually integrate as a suppleness, as something that if we were to engage with it, would bring us into more connection, each of the types of connection we've been sharing about in these sessions. So, a few of the things that have sparked me recently, particularly since January of this year, but really for all of these 10 years and more. Um, it's really something to see the social safety net in the USA be destroyed in front of our eyes. Just unapologetically, just walking in and burning it to the ground. And as I mentioned last hour, for me, there's a huge wave of grief that comes every time I am exposed to any element, any part of the incursion of the ICE reality, our intended decimation of the immigrant population in the USA. I don't know what else to call it. Right, butted up next to that is the creation of the building of and the normalizing of concentration camps or work camps in the USA, which are clearly not just for immigrants. You know, we're already past that threshold where anyone who displeases this administration is likely to end up in a concentration camp. And if they're lucky, there'll be one here in the USA. If not so lucky, then El Salvador, Libya, I I don't know. So I'm saying these things quite intentionally to plant a seed or to spark whatever's alive for you in this particular, I like to call them neighborhoods, neighborhoods of awareness, neighborhoods of um, where you find your attention going to when your heart opens just a little bit more about what's going on. For me, these are prominent neighborhoods that I'm always thrilled when I can find somebody whose neighborhood butts up right against mine and we can kind of walk each other around in our neighborhood. I can feel more connected with you if we do that. And Wendy, did you want to say something, or were you just doing jazz hands?
No, I did want to say
Oh,
something
please.
when you're done.
No, this is just fine. We're in the neighborhood of grief and how it can be activated in our world as a part of our experience. So if there's something that you'd like to share, please.
Um, there's a I guess just want to share my father. My father was born in 1935 in Oklahoma, and he had an eighth grade education, and he was the best man I ever knew. He always fight for the underdog was his motto, fight for the underdog.
Hmm.
And um, I don't know, I guess he was a real outlier in his family. He would tell me these stories about fighting for the underdog, like being on a in the Korean. He was an army grunt in the Korean War, and I guess he was on the back of a truck that was moving grunts from one spot to another, and the kids were running along behind the truck, and people were throwing like nickels at them, and there was this one man, army guy, who was holding out an apple to give to the kids. And the kids would run up, and just as they were about to reach it, he'd pull it back in and laugh. And it went on for quite a while. And my dad's side of the story is, as it made him so angry, he eventually pulled out his gun and aimed it at the guy and said, "You try that trick one more time, I'm going to shoot you dead." And the
Hmm.
guy stopped. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's that sort of thing. My father, I think, was the underdog, and he always rooted for the underdog. And what really, really grounds me today, as I as we face the unfaceable, and I know so much about AI living in Silicon Valley for most of my years, um, is thinking about my father every step of the way, being aware of the problem. Like when I noticed, we were, species were dying, and then we weren't correcting that. My father was aware of not just these problems like the pollution problems and the population problems, but also of the fascist problem. He was aware of this, and I would roll my eyes on a regular basis, but he would read history books and he would holler at the TV and he would try to explain to me about the fascists. And Fox News came on, and my stepmother, who unfortunately and regrettably for her, has like a 70 IQ, really very, very low IQ, and not just joking. had to have Fox News on. And so my father, and to some extent I, as I was going through into college at that time, was subjected to Fox News. And my father would just roar at the TV. And I wanted to just say that Fox News from the very beginning was degrading the skills of people to use logic. There are like 7 logic rules.
Oh yeah.
And Fox News was one by one, or just consistently degrading these by yelling. And so the people who are addicted to Fox News, like my stepmother was, have no logic skills anymore. I just wanted to say I have a real understanding that nothing has happened by surprise to us. This stuff has been rolling for a long time, and my father was against it. And, bless his heart, he's not here to see this. Like, he's not here to see what happened after the Reagan crap, right? He's not here anymore. And I bless that, because he was wide awake to the injustices of the world. And our hero was fight for the underdog. The underdog was a character in Rocky and Bullwinkle. So it's really one of my spiritual just touchstones of knowing that people know what is going on. Many people are completely awake to the predicament, and have been, always have been.
Mhm.
And just one last thing, we have had good people fighting to control and tamp this down forever. I just want people to know it's not you, it's not me. Generations have done their best to prevent this from happening again. But we have a lot of people who held this possibility of peace in their hearts and fought for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what's so sad about it. Yeah.
Beautiful. I don't know who was first in response or next. Cindy, I noticed you've got something in the chat. Perhaps you'd like to share that. And then I also noticed that Jim, you were raising a hand. So I'm I don't know who's first. So
All right, Cindy.
Um, I'm happy to share. I thank you for sharing that, Wendy. I feel there's such a need for us to honor, respect, and remember our ancestors at this time. And our ancestors can be, um, and I put in the chat, my mother. It's so wonderful you brought that up. So my mother was born in Oklahoma in 1938. She attended the protest with us. She was actually incredibly well educated, was professor of University of Oklahoma, a woman in the sciences, which was very unusual at that time. And so she was a trailblazer in many ways in the women's movement just by being herself. But I also grew up with and I'm much older than you, but with my father and my mother, like listening to the news and educating us about what was going on. And very much, even my grandfather stood for he was from Oklahoma too, and sounds very much like your father. He was born in 1904 though, and stood up for the underdog. And so there is this patriotism that was the love of our community, the love of and in Oklahoma, there, that's where Native Americans were moved from the East Coast into Oklahoma and given territory. Like that was our first real internment camps in many ways. And so people who were awake and had eyes open to that could see that there were families struggling to try to find a place and land that they didn't choose and wasn't. And anyway, it was an immigrant experience. The whole thing. I think it's important we don't forget how our country was built and the melting pot that it is, and the lessons that our ancestors learned. And I regret so many that learned those deep lessons are no longer with us. Anyway, that's all I was going to say to that. I have more to say about the grief, Dean, but I'm going to pause that till later.
Mhm. And Jim, did you still have something you'd like to share?
Yeah, as much as what's happening in this country, and not only this country, but in other countries, distresses me. Um, I guess it doesn't surprise me. Uh, my study of history seems to spot a trend that whenever a population, or we might define that, perceives itself as being threatened, either as to its prosperity, its influence, um, its continued existence, it becomes very defensive and tends to become aggressive and fascistic. So I see these things very much as a kind of a part and parcel of our human experience, a very sad one. Um, and institutional change is a rough thing is a difficult thing to accomplish as well. In the first segment I talked about how my previous experience growing up as a Mormon. At the time, it was a very racist organization. It was officially racist. Black people could not hold offices in the higher echelon of the hierarchy of the church. Um, and to their credit, almost half a century ago, they abandoned that policy. And just a few years ago, I think about 5 years ago, they openly admitted that it was a mistake, which is a very difficult thing for a church that believes it's directed by a prophet who has direct communication with God. It's a very difficult admission. But they admitted that the second president of the church, who was named Brigham Young, was admittedly a product of his time, and racism was part of that. And they admitted it was clearly a mistake and not something instituted by divine guidance. But it illustrates how difficult it is for institutions to change. I since became a Unitarian, and Michael Dowd and I had an interesting challenge. I came up with the idea: let's go to the Unitarians, who are otherwise these very progressive, very politically progressive people. Let's see how much we can make them aware of collapse. And he had already had several meetings in individual Unitarian congregations that had invited him in and had been open to that message. But we went to the hierarchy of the church. It was that was not to happen. That was not going to happen. It's very much. They're very much in the Hopium channel. That we're gonna get on top of this. We're gonna rally and meet climate change head on.
Right.
So we abandoned that initiative. But so I guess what I'm trying to say here is my grief is tempered somewhat by the fact that this is what our species does, and another thing species do is come and go. We just look back at the geological record. When circumstances change, species that don't adapt go away. The unfortunate thing with this particular change is we brought it upon ourselves. This is not an asteroid coming from outer space. This is a product of our own hands. So,
Right.
Coming to those realizations has given me comfort to some degree, or at least has made acceptance. Unlike you, Dean, acceptance for me has been easier than awareness, because I've looked at it through that lens.
Thank you.
Huh. That's interesting because for me, the awareness comes a lot easier than the acceptance. I mean, I'm aware of lots of things. I'm aware of most of these horrible patterns and the whole poly crisis and all these things that are seemingly propelling us to our doom. But I'm still not really accepting that most of the time. It's like some part of me is struggling with that awareness, or doesn't. It's like I don't want to accept it fully. So that's hard for me. Hmm.
Fight against the dying of the night. It
The dying of the light, you mean? Yeah, right.
yeah. We don't have to stop fighting. We shouldn't, I mean,
Yeah, right.
yeah. So maybe if acceptance is clearly not meaning I give up, acceptance could
Right.
help better fighting.
Yeah. I I love this conversation that you're bringing to the table, Dean, about how, and I see the conversation as how do you move from acceptance? I mean, how do you move from awareness into acceptance? And you brought up grief earlier, and I feel like one of the ways is to fully face the grief
Mhm.
and accept the grief. Because when
Mhm.
there's resistance to the pain of what's happening, then there's going to be resistance to the what's happening. And anytime we're in resistance to whatever it is, whether it's grief or collapse or the awareness of something, you know, that resistance can create avoidance, it can create numbness, it can create all kinds of things, but it takes our power away. And so the beauty of acceptance, and in many ways I feel you, Jim, because I kind of find acceptance a little easier too. It's a little bit about how I'm wired, I think, is that it accept things change all the time, right? And so we can't stop the flow, right, when it's going in a particular direction. But we can kind of like learn how to get in the flow in a way that is, you know, for the higher good, if you will. I don't know exactly how to say it, but you can hang out on the banks like trying to swim upstream, and then you're getting nowhere and you're getting worn out. And instead, being aware lets you face what's coming forwards. And if you're in acceptance, then you can face what's coming forwards in the most adaptable way. And I think we need to be doing that more as a community, and we're not. But I think acceptance gives us more power. But but it's not the same thing. To your point, Wendy, acceptance is not the same thing as resignation.
Right.
But when you're in acceptance, then you also have full access to love and gratitude and connection, which I know, Dean, that you understand how important that is. Like the real meaning of our life is accessible to us when we are in acceptance of that which we can't change. And also, then it helps us clarify that which we can do something about and gives us courage and strength and hope to do that. So I am a huge proponent of like, know that in acceptance, you're not losing, that you have a reason to be grieving or in grievance of whatever is not right. Because there's a lot that we've lost that is valuable to grieve over, you know, worth grieving over.
Mhm.
How can you hold grief and hope that's an active hope at the same time?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm
I'll be right back.
I'm experiencing a tremendous amount of like waves of wisdom through each of the shares here. As soon as we opened up that container, that space of acknowledging how do we include grief in a good way, it seemed like those waves just started to pump. So that's, I think this is an extraordinary um, neighborhood to be exploring together, to mix metaphors a bit. And I'd like to invite us and challenge us all in a way that I often challenge myself. Wow, I can feel a emotion welling up just starting this invitation. I'm not a father. I'm not a parent. Um, I have done a tremendous amount of work with troubled teens and community development groups around the world for decades. Extreme process work in the name of healing and grieving and learning to metabolize it in a responsible and a good way, um, for not only the youth in the courses, but also their parents who are just a few years older than them and really no more competent at integrating these core components than the youth themselves. And so I invite us, please continue to just let the waves come in the way they do for you in this neighborhood of grief, and how it serves us to include it in a vibrant and important core way. I often challenge myself to imagine I'm having a conversation with a young person that means a great deal to me, somebody that I care about, and they are coming to me with a question about these times, sharing with me how it's breaking their heart or it's causing them fear. And they're asking for some kind of grounded response, like, how can I hold this older person? Tell me how you do it. And it's a lot of responsibility to try and respond when it can feel like my entire inner system is in a blender in that moment. And I would be very, very curious if you have some experience in this kind of sharing. And it doesn't have to be a young person. It can be a person of any age, somebody that matters to you. And they come bearing questions of and deep inquiry into, this is causing me great fear, or this is breaking my heart, or this is making me feel like I want to kill somebody. Have so much rage. What do I do with this? How do I even express it in a good way? So here, this is meant to be a prompt. If it rings for you in a good way, if you'd like to share with that, um, then I would invite you to share along that track. And again, if not, if you have other emergent waves, please, please continue.
Uh, I can say something here. I've been in a men's group for a long time, uh, where I live, and one of the people in the men's group is a guy where he works for Apple, and he's kind of a scientific, nerdy scientific type, but he's also, a very aware guy, and he knows to some degree what's going on in the world, and he's kind of deliberately backed off from the news and stuff like that. But we tend in our men's group we end up talking about what's going on in our society and what's happening with the fascist surge in this country and all that stuff. And, and it's particularly with like the attacks on science, since he's very science oriented, with the attacks on science and on health and, public health and vaccines and all these different things that are going on. He is really outraged, and that, you know, he finds that very upsetting. And so, you know, he gets very angry about it. And, you know, I just want to mention that for me, and I think he's more in touch with the anger than the grief, but for me, I go back and forth. It's like I can be grieving one minute and then 10 seconds later I'll be furious, you know, just enraged about what's going on.
Mhm.
And then the rage touches off more grief. And then the grief will touch off more rage. It's like they seem real connected to me. And that's why I brought that up about, you know, that he's so angry about some things going on, especially in the rejection of science and medicine. Um, and that really infuriates me too. And again, it's like, you know, we've made some progress at least in health matters, and it's even that's being undone. And I don't know. I mean, sometimes I feel intense grief about it, and other times intense rage about it, and or both. I mean, they sort of oscillate and kind of blend together in some way. That's what I wanted to say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
I'm getting more in touch with my grief and the grief question. I mean, they want to kill people. They're not making mistakes or having bad like judgment. No, they want to kill us. Fury comes up, just fury. And then how most people think it's a clown show and they're just being dumb, and laughing even at how stupid they are. And it just makes me sad. It's just the tears, you know. And how would I deal with it? I think is just to feel that, like, let yourself see what you're seeing, because I think trying not to feel the pain prevents me from seeing clearly. But if I'm willing to really accept the pain that they're killing people in mass and trying to make it faster, you know, if I can't accept that pain, well, how could I possibly see it? So grief is like that. If you can feel the grief, then you can see clearly. Or if I feel the grief over all these species and planet and the whole ecosystem in distress, I can really see my ecosystem with more love, you know? You never know the last time you're going to see a butterfly, for example. Like, so you hold it tighter to you. You give it a stronger hug. That's maybe how I would talk to a teenager.
Mm, mm.
That grief carry over into your love of what the grief represents you're losing.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's
Yeah.
powerful. Powerful. Thank you so much.
Oh, beautiful. It's interesting you bring this up because I asked my mother, so she's 90, or no, she's 80 something, or late 80s, this question because I was really immersed in the grief and finding it hard to find my way out as we're losing so many things we've been talking about, and in the collapse. And then I have lost a lot of friends over the last couple of years as well. And so, you know, my mom has lost friends. She's lost family members. She um, grew up towards the World War II. She was alive for the end of that and all of that. So um, she's had a lot of grief. So I asked her how she deals with it, and she kind of looked at me askance, like, "Why are you asking me this question? What a weird question to ask me." But she also sort of got it, um, because she deals with it really well. And she said, "You know, I grieve for that which I've lost, and I focus on the living."
Mhm.
And I felt like, and she does do that. She finds the blessings, right, to focus on it. And I realized, like, okay, that's where there is. And so it's like what you said, Wendy, about the butterfly. This may be the last time you see the butterfly, natural habitat, and we're seeing butterflies now in an unnatural habitat. The last time I saw butterflies, like monarchs, for example, in their natural habitat in Santa Cruz, California, they used to cover the trees. That's probably 15 years ago. I've gone back to the same place, and what used to be a yearly occurrence doesn't happen. Maybe it does, but it's rare. It's not, certainly not something you can just go see. So um, yeah, like I think the gratitude and appreciation for that which we do have um, in our moment. So being present is kind of like what I'm trying to say here. That's a little add to what Wendy was saying. Present and moment, and really marking those moments of delight and joy, along with the keeping your eyes open for what's going on, I think is the only way that we can keep from drowning in the emotions of, and it makes sense, Richard, that anger would be there too. Anger, outrage, righteous indignation, like all of those things are all part of
Oh yeah, for
it.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, I hear you.
Cindy, thank you so much for putting that extra point in the same zone that Wendy was. Wendy, you really nailed it in terms of something I could actually hear you saying in a conversation with a precious younger person. And so thank you for that, and thank you, Cindy, for adding. And there's a phrase that we use a lot around here when we're talking, especially with somebody who's new to the work, that this I like to call this the inner work of collapse. That's a winning phrase, right? My marketing ability is crazy bad. But um,
Put it on a flag, a placard, you know.
yeah, right.
The joy
Uh,
of despair.
one of the phrases that I use that seems to be understandable, kind of a little less confronting, is that this work is really aimed to expand our capacity to be present in the face of ever-growing stressors. Now, can I get an amen on that? We appear to be in a global culture that for some amount of time to come, these stressors are going to continue to grow. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you bet.
And so seems like a pretty benign target to reach for, to want to expand our capacity to be present. Because we want to be present in order to be of service to those we love. So somehow I just wanted to include that because yeah, again, I've had to come up with some different ways of communicating how it lives for me. I tend to be a little extreme with how I talk about the human-caused collapse of Earth and human systems, and that can be off-putting. So, just an offering that you may want to try on for size. That really a good thing to reach for in our lives would be, how do we become more and more present in the face of these extraordinary times?
I want to, oh, Jim, yeah, why don't you go, Jim? I'll say something later.
Drop the damn cell phone. Put it in a bag for a weekend. That's how you can become more present.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. I refuse to own a smartphone, personally. I just refuse. I will not own one of those things. Anyway, go on. Jim, were you going to say something?
Well, Larissa had something to say too. So
Thanks. Um, I mean, it may, on the face of it, seem benign or a low bar to aim for, but my um, thoughts around that are that being present is the most difficult thing for all of us.
Yeah.
We resist it with every fiber, and that is why we are where we are. So I don't know why you think it's, something that wouldn't be frightening for people. Because to me, it seems like the most frightening thing that people do not want to be present because we would then feel everything that is happening to us, and that would be pretty unbearable. So that's one thing I wanted to say. Um, and the other thing is that
Ah,
for me, grief is not managing grief or dealing with grief is not at the top of the list. My priority, my ongoing and abiding focus is clarity. How do I maintain my clarity, possibly otherwise known as sanity, under this fire hose, as you so appropriately called it, of not only the misinformation or the good information, but of everything, the the collapse, the horrors, the challenges, the the how are you going to deal with this every day or every hour of the day? That is our constant diet. That's my concern. So, yeah, thank you.
just brilliant. Thank you. Mm.
Can I piggyback on top of that? Because I was going to say something addressing what you were talking about earlier, Larissa, about the white contagion, that whole belief system and all of that. But it seems to me a really big part of it is this intense level of denial. Like everybody's in denial, everybody denies reality, they deny science, they deny racism, they deny almost everything, everything that's really happening gets denied. So, um, in terms of maintaining our sanity, seems to me we have to find a way to deal with this deluge of denial. It's like we're swimming in this denial constantly. It's like everybody is in denial, everybody is distracting themselves with everything that's going, they find all kinds of ways to distract themselves and not face what's happening. And the level of denial is just astounding to me. But it's what's happening. I mean, this is where most people are at. So that seems to me to very much fit with what you were saying, Yeah.
I think it could be a synonym for not being present, denial,
Synonym for what?
for not being present.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And that's where most people are most of the time. It's like,
It's
yikes.
fine. It's a survival mechanism.
Mhm.
It is, except it doesn't work anymore, at least.
Yeah, but from what I've read and
Yeah,
understood is that when we're in that snake brain, that's
right.
all we have access to. So yeah,
Yep.
that's the challenge.
Yeah, it is a huge challenge. I mean, it's like our biology works against us some of the time for sure.
Mhm.
Yep, I know.
I so appreciate, Larissa, your point about the immense challenge for human beings right now to be present. Perhaps one of the greatest challenges humanity's ever had uh, to deal with at scale. So I really appreciate it. It's one of those water in which we're swimming items. Anyway, I I noticed for myself the thread or the rope or the whatever the right example would be, is for me to keep presencing myself, keep bringing myself to being present in the moment best I can. I need something to that's precious enough to compel me to keep doing that hard work, that immensely powerful, painful work of being present, even to horrors. And so a little while ago, I put in the chat a couple of quotes, and this one comes to mind because it seems like it fits here for me. And if I may, it's the one that's from a person named Manly P. Hall, kind of an early consciousness explorer. And he says that the chosen ones are not elected by man, nor marked by lineage, but by the silent light within the soul that responds to the eternal flame of truth. They are those who, through suffering and silence, awaken to the divine responsibility of carrying the lamp through the darkness of the world. And maybe I'm naive, but I don't hear those in religious terms. I could get really scared if that was a religious person talking that way.
Yeah.
For me, there's the truth that I interpret here is the truth of the oneness. Behind it all the time. And that is another kind of layer, usually a more advanced layer in this work, as we tend to talk about the progression that can happen as the stages of awareness is a way we talk about it in some of the courses and so on here. And for some people, it happens early, it happens spontaneously, and that's wonderful for people like that. For me, it's taken a lot of work and a lot of being willing to be in pain, knowing that this is life in this moment, and that oneness is here, wrapped all around that moment of pain. So I don't know if this is communicating well. I'm not sure if I'm making sense to y'all, but it seemed like the piercing truth that you were just saying, Larissa, of perhaps being present is one of the most terrifying things in the human experience right now. And my nightmare, if I put myself in that mode, my nightmare is if I'm present, I will have to feel so much pain. That is the superficial truth here now that we're in. And so it is holding that light, even in the midst of that pain that seems like it's a thread worth holding, worth following together along that track that you so wisely brought up about how desperately painful being present can be. Yeah, thank you.
Something related to all this that has come up in several times. I've gotten responses from people to responses to stories I've written on Medium. I've gotten some responses from people where they basically said, everything's so horrible right now and everything's so painful. I can't deal with it all. I just can't accept all this. And I can't give up hope. People will say that, it's all seems so hopeless, but either I can't give up hope or I refuse to give up hope. And I actually just wrote a response to one of the responses about this morning. And I basically said, and this seems right to me now, that there, there's no such thing as blanket pessimism or blanket optimism. I said, I'm very pessimistic right now about humanity as a whole, like our ability to deal with all these issues or confront these issues and certainly, you know, overcome these issues. No, I don't see it. You know, I don't see it happening. So I'm very pessimistic about humanity as a whole, but I'm very optimistic at the same time about individual growth and transformation. I mean, like all of us here, I mean, we're all striving to be pretty aware, conscious people, and we're trying to keep our hearts open and learn and grow through this shitstorm that we're in. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, to me, that's really beautiful. And so I would say at the same time, I'm completely hopeless about humanity's long-term prospects or even short-term prospects at this point. I mean, I'm pretty hopeless about us ever turning this around or really dealing with climate change and all these other crises. But my experience with people and in my own life is that there are some individuals who are just wonderful and open-hearted and open-minded and wanting to learn and wanting to grow, and that's part of the picture too. So to me, that's like a really crucial distinction. I mean, I'm hopeless. The big picture looks pretty hopeless, but on an individual level, I can see a lot of positive things. I mean, it's very, very curious. But I thought I'd better throw that in there.
Forget who it is that coined the term that rather than being trapped in that dualism between hopelessness, you know, and optimism,
Right.
there's a state of being hope-free. It's a very, very Buddhist hope-free.
Oh,
It's a very Buddhist kind of concept of
okay.
letting go of attachment,
Hmm.
and because perhaps the first time in Homo sapien history, um, we're all in the same boat. Um, not everyone's aware they're in the boat. Most are not aware they're in the boat.
Right.
Some people are at different levels of the boat. The poor folks down in the bilge are like the poor folks in steerage on the Titanic who, are the first to get flooded, first to get drowned, but the whole ship eventually goes down. Um, and so that I think the silver lining there is, I think more and more people will come to the realization that we're facing this on a global scale, on a humanity-wide scale. And in the meantime, it's my job to be as patient as I can with those who haven't caught on to this. Some will never catch on to it, perhaps. But,
Yeah.
as things worsen, denial will become a much more difficult task.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. It is hard to maintain all this denial in the midst of all the evidence and all the things that are going on. Yeah, people are very clever with creating new ways to deny, you know.
But it's very
There's that one
exhausting.
contingent.
What?
There's that one contingent of folks that says, "Well, Jesus is coming anyway, and this is all part of it."
Right, right.
This is all part of the
The
part of
end
the thing.
times, yes, will be
Yeah,
the faithful ones will be wafted up to heaven, I
yeah,
know.
right.
Right.
Larissa.
I I wanted to say that this denial, the level of denial, is very exhausting and it makes us very sick.
Hmm.
And that is why we are having these epidemics. In fact, I think COVID was sent to open a doorway for us, just to see what we are doing to our bodies, but fear prevented us from being able to see that. Anyway, yeah,
Well, that's a good point. Yeah,
denial is very costly. And
very.
because those energies are so depleted, we are not reaching that tipping point or um, stage of being able to turn the ship around.
Nope. You're right. You're right. Hmm.
Dean, where's our little store where we can buy like hats and custom apparel? We need to advertise ourselves as the safe circle spot. People come up and could talk to us about the
Well, I'm shifting gears in a number of ways in a number of platforms to have a clearer way for people to contact this work in a good way. I'm a couple steps away from having a line of merch, a line of merchandise. But I sure appreciate you asking. It means a lot. I am the world's worst marketer. I'm this probably the second worst at creating an idea on which to build a business, an organization that's supposed to be self-sustaining. This is the worst business model in the world. Second, perhaps only to creating videos about drowning kittens or something. So, thank you very much for your words of encouragement, and I seriously consider putting together a not a red hat and maybe a sweatshirt or something, but I have no idea. I have no idea how that's going to go.
And what are the possibilities of creating some kind of consortium of other groups? For example, I'm on a weekly basis. I'm not there every week, but on Thursday evenings, there's a group hosted by Val Christensen
Hmm.
that Michael Dowd originally kicked off, and there are others as well. Um, um, David, what's his last name? I mean,
David Baum.
we're not alone here.
Yeah,
What are the possibilities of?
I'm very much with you, and I consider myself a part of a consortium. Having been around now for 10 years doing this, I've seen each one of those groups, come in, and I think particularly Val is doing a great job in his world, and I just watched something with that David Baum did with interviewing a couple of his facilitators for the Collapse Club that he runs. And what I can say is that we need every flavor, every conceivable way of reaching out to others. We need them all. It's not ex at all like there's too much of this kind of group going on. And what I can say about all this work in particular is my uh, leaning has been all along to have a progression that people can choose how deep they want to go, how self examining a person might be along the way to being more and more present in the face of larger and larger stressors. That can involve shadow work. It can involve something that I've found immensely valuable is internal family systems is a way of processing this kind of self-awareness modality. And, these kind of tools for folks who are choosing to go to that level of engagement, uh, I find that there's more and more space as a person engages with these kind of conversations. Look at how much I feel so much more space available in myself and in this circle out of our going fairly deep into this today. Just one circle session together, and oh my goodness. And most of the other groups are are rather contained and do not imply that kind of open-ended expansion of depth or breadth of topics. There are a couple of groups that I very much feel akin to that have as one of their core components this notion of grief that we've been talking about, particularly grieving together in a ritual fashion. And it is um, some of the most life-giving of my practices is to be able to sit in that kind of circle. And that is the occasional part of this work. So I love your idea. I don't know how to right now be in more of a collaborative um, connection with these groups. I don't know. I've been a guest in Val's space a lot of times in the past few years to, come in and let people know what I'm up to. And I think maybe one person has come to participate in the work out of, sharing this kind of stuff. So thank you for your ideas. Please don't be discouraged by my kind of harumph kind of response. But I think it's a different take on the work. And I don't like how validating the world seems to be of my approach. I
Hmm.
think anybody who's not shadow trained, shadow aware for in their own system, in their own family history, in their own neighborhood or their own culture, then at the larger scale, I think that person's just waiting to get slammed. I don't, I think that's essential self-knowledge, an essential cultural knowledge. To not know about shadow dynamics is insane right now. That's a level of denial that I think is extraordinarily self-destructive. And I see you waving, Larissa.
If you're done,
I am. Thank you.
okay. I just wanted to say about, I know that the suggestion was, highly ironic and not intended to be taken at face value, but it reminded me of there's an Australian Aboriginal writer, scholar of history, who talks a bit about educational systems. And he mentions in the course of that how effective and successful capitalism has been at absorbing everything into itself.
Yeah.
Now, you're talking about a means of uh, expanding and disseminating a spiritual message using capitalist strategies. Just want to throw that out there. The other thing I want to ask is if someone like me enters your community, who are they going to see? Who am I going to see that is going to make me feel not safe? I no longer expect safety,
Mhm.
but who am I going to see that makes me feel we can have a common ground conversation?
Mhm.
Just asking, not to necessarily to be answered
Mhm.
today, but yeah.
Yeah, exquisite question. And I got to tell you, this is the most difficult type of work I've ever tried to offer to the world. I've done corporate training, I've done community development training, youth at risk training, and on and on and on. And this is easily the most difficult to offer and to um, find a way in to a person what matters most to people in a good way that resonates, that brings on some spark of interest, some spark of resonance of, oh, this is how you're oriented in the world, this is what you're offering, and something in me resonates with that, which is, I think, a variant of what you're saying. And of course, each of us will have different criteria for that. And so I'm very humbly offering myself splayed open here. I don't know the answer to that. And I've been very engaged with this process of how to present it and how to form the work and so on. It's a brilliant
Um,
question, and I don't know.
I actually love this question you posed, Larissa. I really appreciate you being here in this space
Ah,
and giving us an enormous amount of wisdom that only you could give us. Um, because, each of us bring the wisdom that only we can give. But I think one of the things that I appreciate about this space, and there's a few other spaces that I've been in that I really appreciate, is the diversity of perspectives.
mm,
Um, and people from all over the United States, for example, um, people from all different backgrounds, all different ages. And I have noticed that a lot of the groups that I have been into who've been part of this type of conversation are people that are over 60. There are very few young people. And so, Wendy, I think you're younger than that. So that's nice to see you here. But mostly white people and mostly men.
It makes me look
And
at
so to see a diversity is like hugely appreciated from my perspective. And my question to you, Larissa, is what do you think would be would make this group more welcoming um, to a higher diversity of individuals?
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. And I appreciate how carefully you have to word that. I would like to be able to say racially diverse. That is what is obviously missing. It's the gender thing is there for sure, but um, racial diversity seems to be women can speak up about the lack of gender diversity, but we people of color cannot say that whiteness thing. Um, so I appreciate the fact that it's been received today in the way that it has. So how would a BIPOC person be encouraged to open this door? I look through the window, I just see white people. So what does that tell me? I mean, this is what I would like to be able to ask a community like yours. What do you think it tells us when we look in and we see only white faces?
Yeah.
How did that come to be? What is it that we're doing that we're not acknowledging that ended us up here in this room full? We say we don't want to be that way, but here we are. So reverse engineer from that. How did we get here? So what what I would like is to be able to open up this Mighty Networks platform and see myself, see myself, even though it might turn out that those brown faces, I have less in common with them than I have with many of the others. They turn out to be Baptists or, you know, believe in, I don't know, Beyonce or something that I have no empathy or sympathy with, but I see myself and that they are parts of history that they have not been able to escape in the same way that I've not been able to escape.
yeah.
So on that level, just optically, I can feel I have a fellow present there.
Yeah. I do see your hand, Wendy, and I have a very few minutes left till I need to go, and I'm afraid that means the end of this call.
Oh, right.
I want to put out the warm and emphatic invitation to please consider yourself invited and please come to the third Saturday in this month of September. Same times, same link. You will get invitations again. This is such an extraordinary conversation. I would be blessed if you would consider coming and joining for that. What I'd like to ask is we have just a small handful of minutes. Could I ask that each person, starting with Wendy, could you have less than 1 minute of what are you landing with? What are you present to in your own body, in your own system, after spending this time with these people? And particularly, Larissa, I am greatly shifted in the most beautiful way by your time and presence and contribution here. Thank you so much. Wendy, would you start us out with landing?
Yes, yes. I'm moved to start us out with less than a minute of landing. Because of my fear of food scarcity, I began watching gardening videos and I've become engaged in several gardening communities on YouTube that are almost entirely Black people. They're very welcoming. They're very welcoming. So I would say that there are many reasons Black people are not here in very large numbers. And I would say I have never met a personality like you, Dean, who is so safe and welcoming. And I want to thank you so much and everyone here. The safety I feel here is just, that in itself is the most healing balm. Thank you.
Mm, thank you.
I'll go. I'll echo Wendy's statement. Thank you. I very much feel that we're on the vanguard of this movement, and there are demographics besides race that seem to define us. You'll note that we seem to be of a certain age here, as is manifest by the amount of gray hair I see. And education also seems to be a big factor. I think it helps to have been through the educational process to be able to see these trends that we see. But hopefully we'll find ways to expand that both to lower ages as well as folks who might have not had the same advantages we've all obviously had in terms of education.
Well, I can go. Just real quickly and about the racial issues or disparities or whatever we want to call them. I have this image, and I guess it's right. I don't know, but I have this image of like white culture and white beliefs and all these things on one track, and then I kind of see people of color on this whole other track, and they're like parallel, but they don't touch much. They don't really intersect much, and I honestly don't know what to do about that. But I think it's true. They don't really intersect much. Yeah. And then for me, well, I always come away from these meetings feeling really full in my heart because, I feel like I'm relating to people who are conscious, loving beings and really care about humanity and care about the planet. And that's healing in itself. So for me, I feel good. I feel I'm encouraged by people like you. Thank you.
Richard, thank you.
And we're right on your 1 o'clock thank you for having me. It's been great to be able to put some of these things on the table. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Does it work now?
Yeah. Yeah.
I am just immensely blessed by the presence, like full and complete presence of each of you and from your own unique perspectives. And I am so grateful for you, Dean, for bringing us together. So just say thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Dean, too, for sure.
Thank you. So this has been an exquisite first of 2 rounds of completing one big old year-long training thing. Whether you've touched it before or not, thank you for bringing this extraordinary energy and connection to this time. And I would be thrilled to see you again in any of our environments. I am also blessed to be connected with you in this moment. Thank you all so much.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Good to meet you all.
Good to meet you.